This is me panning the room. And here are my note cards. I'm trying to keep them in order. Sorry, I had to improvise so they don't look normal. Okay. Mara Corbin, Section 118. 2.2 million people. That's the number of people in the U.S. that were incarcerated in 2020. I'm sure some of you may know somebody in prison and some of you may not. And while there are people that deserve to be in prison and deserve to live in the cruel conditions that prisons provide, there are many, many that do not. So today I wanted to provide you with some information about the conditions in prisons and the conditions that inmates are living in, and how they're set up for failure the second that they enter the prison system. I wanted to start by telling you a personal story. My dad is actually in prison. He went to prison when I was 9 years old over a drug charge, a very minor drug charge. And at this point, my mom had already passed, so my dad was pretty much all that I had left. And me being a huge daddy's girl, it did impact me a lot, and I had to grow up very, very quick. I wasn't in the best home condition when he went to prison, so I didn't really go get to see him. So I haven't seen my dad in 8 years. I just turned 18 in this past year, so I finally was able to go see him. But with COVID happening and protocols at the prison, they had visitation shut down. So I have actually not seen my dad's face in 8 years. So let that sink in. But as I got older, and after I watched Orange is the New Black, of course, I started to ask him questions. What's it like in there? Has he ever seen people fight? Is the food good? Is his bed comfortable? Has he made friends? Is it true that there's gangs in prisons? And I'm not sure what I was expecting when I asked him these questions, but the answers that I got definitely weren't it. Yes, there's fights all the time. He explained to me that this was the reason that he couldn't call me for weeks on end, because they would lock down his cell block and they weren't able to use the phones or computers. Yes, there were gangs. He was asked to join them multiple times, but he avoided it due to the fact that he didn't want to get in trouble. No, the food was not good. It was horrible, actually. He lost 15 pounds because he wasn't eating. No, he didn't have friends. He was scared of getting involved with other inmates due to the fact that he didn't know what they were charged for and he didn't want to get in any trouble. And he told me things that I didn't ask. He told me that inmates had weapons and drugs. He told me that the guards would help bring this kind of stuff in. They would bring contraband in, like cell phones. And he told me, and I quote, "The guards are more corrupt than the inmates." I didn't dive any deeper into this response because, honestly, I didn't want to know. But are you hearing what I'm saying? The prisoners were taken from the streets where they can cause harm, and they were put into a giant box with giant brick walls and bars where the conditions are just as bad, if not worse, where they're inevitably going to get in trouble with the drugs floating around and gangs and weapons, and where the guards aren't doing their jobs. They aren't protecting the inmates. And you know why this is? Indiana prison systems are privatized, and they're either totally run by private companies or pieces of pie distributed to the highest bidder. It's not about locking bad people up and seeing what they can do to educate and rehabilitate offenders so that there's a better chance that they don't return. It's more about how many people they can lock up and how much they can make from these inmates. For each year a prisoner is housed, they receive $32,000 a year per inmate. My dad is serving 20, so think about that. Where does this money go, though? Because it's not spent on better housing or better programs for the inmates. And they have a monopoly on everything in prison. From the phone system to the commissary to the trust fund system, The contracts are all given to the lowest bidder, which in turn provides the worst service, which in turn provides the administrator with more money in their pockets. It's funny, isn't it, how inmates are supposed to be the ones that are being punished, but really the ones that are being punished are the loved ones that are sending their family money just so that they can survive. The families that are forced to pay ridiculously inflated prices to get anything in prisons. Visits, phone calls, commissary, food, hygiene, all down to the $8 cheeseburger that you can buy when you go to visit your inmate in prison. The prison system is ran by greedy politicians that are defrauding taxpayers and painting a picture that at the very least is deceiving, more like corrupt. It's all about the mighty dollar, not what they can do to try and help with the recidivism rate. Research has consistently shown that rehabilitation services for inmates do not successfully rehabilitate them. Most inmates are released and resort to crime almost immediately, which skyrockets the amount of repeat offenders. I'm sure you've heard me say that term a few times now, recidivism. This is a synonym for relapsed, but it's used in the terms of inmates who reoffend or repeat their crime after they've already received their punishment or already done their time. The recidivism rate in Indiana in 2021 is 34%. The United States has some of the highest recidivism rates in the world, and according to the National Institute of Justice, almost 44% of criminals released return before their first year out of prison. And I know some of you may think that that's not a big number, 44%, but with how often prisons talk about their rehabilitation services and programs, that number should be 0. Prisoners understand that they have to suffer the consequences of their actions. I understand that, you understand that. But the punishment that these offenders is being taken too far. All of their rights are taken away. Their right to vote, their freedom, of course, their voice, even their privacy. They're not able to shower alone. They're treated like animals in a cage, not humans. And it's wrong. I shouldn't have to worry about getting a job at 14 years old to be able to send my dad money because he doesn't have body wash, or because he calls me and tells me that his shoes are too tight because they provided him with a pair of shoes that was a size and a half too small. When you first get to prison, they provide you with the basic necessities. They give you a pillow, blanket, body wash, toothpaste, a small thing of shampoo and conditioner, a pair of shoes, and a uniform. But after these things run out, it's on you to get them. Like, once they run out, they're gone. If you don't have the money to pay for them, or you don't have family to send you money to pay for them, you're simply out of luck. They do offer hygiene packages and food packages. The hygiene packages include hygiene products and like clothing and socks and stuff like that. And they do offer food packages of like snacks and stuff that you can't get in the prison, but it's very, very expensive. So if you can't afford it, you're not getting it, and you have to figure out how to stomach the food that they provide you, honestly. When you're locked up like animals, it's inevitable that you're going to act like animals. But thankfully, I've been able to provide for my dad from 14 to 19, but that shouldn't be something that I have to do. And until someone's able to open the public's eyes about what's really going on in the prison system and what needs to be done differently, the recidivism rate will only increase and the conditions are only going to get worse. And even if you're not somebody that has to experience this personally, I hope today that I have explained to you enough of how bad it is really for inmates. And I hope that I've hopefully changed your mind. So, thank you. And I'm panning the room after. Thank you.